everybody, welcome
I hope
back.
that doesn't get in the show.
I hope it gets in the show. Sharon was
I
singing, but I
don't.
don't think it. She was like,
No.
ah,
We're clearing our throats.
welcome to the Oversharon Show. We should do a sing show.
Hello.
That'd be hilarious. We just sing the whole
Ooh,
time. This is our musical.
that would be awesome.
That would be grand.
I'm just kidding. I don't know.
That'd be great. I know people in the chat probably right now are like, yes, do it. What's up, chat? How you guys doing today? We never say hi to you in the beginning. We want to say what's up.
Hi, what's up, y'all?
Thanks
How
for
y'all
being there,
doing
showing
today?
some love. Thanks for being here right at the beginning of the episode. Awesome.
Yeah. Most
And
people are late. No, I'm just kidding.
how dare
Not
they?
that I care. Who cares? Whatever. That is what it
She
is.
that's all she talks about people. She's like every time she's like, I can't believe people come late. No, she doesn't say that.
Fill up. Just kidding.
He's been on time now.
I know.
I wonder why.
He has someone next to him
Our
telling him.
favorite fan, our number one fan
That's right.
is next to him. Okay, I have a quote here from the Buddha, if he ever lived, or this is a quote attributed to him.
The Buddha.
It says, one clings to life, although there is nothing to be called life. Another clings to death, although there is nothing to be called death. In reality, there is nothing to be born. Consequently, there is nothing to perish. There you go.
Yeah. Very, very philosophical. I like it. And now I'm going to pull a card.
All right, you do that.
And the Magician. I don't think we've ever pulled this card.
Ooh, I like that representation.
It's very simple.
Yeah, very rider weight.
Yeah, it's pretty Rider Waite-ish. So yeah, this guy manifests things, right? He's a manifester.
Yeah, yep. It's like it's the first representation of the sacred masculine energy, the manifestation. Very fiery card.
Yeah. That's one of my numbers. That's one of my cards.
Number one. Me too. I'm number one.
Oh, yeah?
Number two.
Number
So what do you think
two.
about the card?
So like I said, if I remember correctly, this guy has all that is within him to know what to do and to know how to manifest what he needs in life. And
Did you freeze?
I mean, in a nutshell, that's what I'm about. The Magician. Pardon me?
Oh, I there was a I think you might have froze up for a minute, but
Oh,
I think it'll be all right in the recording.
okay. So yeah, this guy manifests. He knows, he has everything. He has all the knowledge he needs basically to manifest what he needs in life. And he has the divine source, the wisdom. What do you call it? The kingdom of heaven is within you. He has that. He knows what to do.
Yeah. I also like how they represent all different
four
of the suits are there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like
the cups,
yeah.
the wand, the sword, and the pentacles are all represented because he has all those things and he knows how he can use all those things.
And then he's pointing to the up and pointing to the ground. So it's kind of like as above, so below.
Right. And then he has a little infinity. What do you call that thing?
Lemniscate or Lemniscate or Lemniscate. I can't, because
something like that.
I learned the word from Michael Tessarion, and he has an Irish, and he has an Irish accent, so he'd be like the Lemniscate.
Really? He's funny.
Yeah.
I would say Lemniscate, but I've never looked it up, so I'm just gonna say
the Limp Bizkit. What?
Infinity symbol.
Yeah, the number 8, the sideways 8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a really cool picture. Really cool card. And then he got the sun above his head too, which is nice. Another fire reference.
I didn't even realize that. Yes, the sun.
Yep.
Right. And then I don't like, what do you know about the little thing he's holding to like, what is he holding in his hand that's pointing up?
That's the wand. magic wand.
Another wand. It's a different one because
Yeah, it's the magician's wand.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because he has one right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's another one.
So is there anything else you wanted to say about?
Well, I think that that wand would represent like his own personal creation, his own wand, and then the other wand on the table is just like the other. It's like all the elements that are available to you to use. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, I was going to look for a different card, but we'll be fine.
All right. So today, everybody, we are talking about death. You probably saw that on the, I'm probably sure I came up with a pretty cool title. I probably just said death on the title. It's probably the easiest one to convey what we're talking about. We're going to be talking about everything that has to do with death. But first we wanted to do is to share our own experiences in our own life with death and overshare a little bit. This way, I think it's cool to talk about it up front, because then later when we're talking about things, people will understand and they'll have a little bit of our experience with it, and they know that we're not just talking out of our asses. I mean, we can be, but
it's about oversharing anyways.
We're going to be oversharing. Yeah.
So I will start off by saying that when I was young, when I was a little girl, why this happened, I don't know, because why should a little girl be thinking about people dying? But I guess like I would go to funerals and things like that at the church where I went, and I would see people's family members dying, their dad or their grandpa or their mom or things like that, right? And in my little immediate family, because my dad and my mom were the only ones of their family members who lived in Phoenix. So I didn't really grow up with cousins and uncles and aunts and stuff like that around me. So the only real close people I had that were my flesh and blood were my mom, dad, and my 4 siblings. And then if they had any children, right? So growing up, my perspective on seeing people dying that were family members of other people was just that I saw them, and then I would see like their family member had died. And it depending on the situation, like if I were at somebody's funeral, if I knew them well, or if I felt like I was more close to them, or I felt like it was a significant relationship for that person, sometimes I would empathize, even though I had no knowing or ability to empathize, but I would, maybe sympathize is a better word. And I would imagine myself in that situation. I would say, oh no, like their so-and-so died, their mom or whatever. And then I would be like, oh, that must be so hard. That's going to be really tough for them. And that is what would cause tears for me in some cases, depending on how the moment was, whether I knew those people or not. But then, then on my own, I would think about, okay, well, what would happen if one of my closest family members died? And I would just naturally think to myself, okay, my dad is the oldest. He's probably the first one who's going to pass. So what would I like? How would it affect me? How would I feel if he passed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Well, my dad was much older. I mean, given the, how shall I say, generation gaps between my whole family, my dad was 16 years older than my mom. My mom was 22 years older than her eldest daughter. My eldest sister was 16 years older than me. So like, if you just kind of expand that all, it's like my sister could kind of be my mom at 16. My mom could be my grandma. My dad could be my great grandpa. I mean, that's how much of a huge gap it was. Right. So my dad could have been my grandpa. That's how much older he was than me. But and by the time I was even probably in high school, I think he had retired. So he wasn't, it's not like he was like, oh, he's the breadwinner. And then it's just gonna, like, if he dies, it's like, I'm going to lose. Like, I didn't see those things happening. Right. And he was a part of my life, but he was also very much involved in the church and doing things for the church and the people. And so he was kind of like, in some regards, he was kind of like a grandpa too, because he didn't really get super involved in like raising us unless he had to do some discipline. Then he would get involved. But for the most part, he would still talk to us and encourage us and tell us, like, you shouldn't be doing those kinds of things, or you should be doing these kinds of things and those kind of things. And he was very pivotal in mine and my sister's life when, because we were the youngest, and he'd lived his life, and he's just like, he warned us about men and like, never be alone with a man in a room, like just never, because you don't know the intentions of that man. Like, if you're in school and the teacher says, oh, stay back for me, and all the other kids leave, don't. So like, I was already aware of a lot of things like that. So I was kind of always aware of my surroundings and who's around and who people were, because I was going to be careful, and not put myself into a situation that was going to result in harm. But so he was like that to me, for me. But at the same time, I thought about if he were to pass, like, then what? I just thought, well, he would just, I guess I would be sad, but like, that would be his time, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, it's funny because like, even then I didn't realize with what I know now, I get it. But back then I wasn't realizing that I knew something that I didn't know that I knew. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense, but I was kind of very matter of fact about death, because it just was like, well, it was their time, what can you do, especially when it's older people, right? Now it was much harder.
How much older was your dad than you? Because I don't know if you said it specifically, just so I'm sure people are gonna.
16 plus 22 plus 16, 32 plus 22, 54.
54. Yeah, I was saying it, but I muted myself because the dog started barking next door.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, 54. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. He was. Yeah. So I think when I was like 10, ish, he was like retired. And so I was a little girl, So anyway, yeah, he was. So I guess I looked at those things kind of matter of factly, but I would think about, I remember that as a young child, thinking about those deep, like, who says, like, how am I going to feel? Like, what, like 5 or 10-year-old says, how am I going to feel when my dad dies, or when my mom dies, or something like that. Right. And so I had that always in the back of my mind. And I just never thought to myself that, someone so close to me could die so soon. Like, I never expected that Wesley would die. Like, he was my best friend. It was just like, okay, I got this amazing gift, my best friend as my husband, and now he dies. Like, I was not expecting that. And it was a hit. It was a hard hit, because my dad hadn't even passed away yet. It was like, he was the one I expected to be the first one to pass. And my dad was probably, when Wesley passed away, my dad was, I think he was like 84 or 85. Yeah, because my dad passed away 4 years and 8 days after Wesley. The same July. Wesley passed away July 4th, 4th of July, Independence Day.
Wow.
Kind of symbolic, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
And independence from this realm, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
And my dad passed away the 12th, right? Was it the 12th? Yeah. 8 and 4. So 4 years and 8 days after Wesley. So my dad was 89 when he passed. And yeah.
And how old was Wesley?
32, I think. Yeah.
And so what was your experience like after that? You know, like the sudden shock and then.
So, okay. I don't know if I've ever gone into this part. So, Wesley was told to be put on hospice for, just because it was like, they were like, he's pretty much on hospice now. And it's funny because that is the day that I didn't take him to his appointment with his oncologist. All the other times I took him, they never said anything like that to us. But this time, for whatever reason, Wesley's like, Dad wants to take me to my oncology appointment. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And I was at work and Dad took him, his dad. And then I was at work. I remember being at the water fountain, getting a phone call from Dad. And he's like, they've just told us to put Wesley on hospice. I don't know if it was him or Wesley. I can't even remember who called me. Somebody called me. And I was just kind of like, what? Like, doesn't make sense. And I'm like, I was confused because I'm like, I honestly literally had blinders on. Like, I was not, as much as Wesley was like deteriorating, he was like getting so slender. He looked like really, really slender. And like people were like, Sharon, you're not seeing this. And I'm like, no, he's fine. I wasn't seeing it. And so I was like confused. I was like, okay, why are they saying that? That makes no sense. He's fine. So I went home because I had to tell my boss I have to go. And I told him they put him on hospice. And he's like, you can go. You should go. And I'm like, okay. So I went home and it was weird. They sent nurses in or whatever and gave him all these medications. And then I'm not a big fan of hospice because I just feel like they're whatever. I'm not going to make comments, but
we're not a fan of the medical industry and overall on the show, so I'm sure no one would be surprised.
Yeah. So I felt like it was just like they were facilitating end of life. Like, and I was like, not. I'm like, they're like, oh, well, if, they're just like, don't like, you don't need to give him water or food or anything. I'm just like, excuse me, I'm going to feed him if I can. I'm going to give him water. I'm going to try to give him water. Like what? I'm just going to let him die, not like give him water or feed him. Like, what the hell? So weird. Meanwhile, just give him all these crappy medications. I'm like, the hell is wrong with people? Anyway, I was not aware at the time of it. I was waking up to a lot of the deception in the medical industry. Even though I had experienced some of it, I hadn't experienced enough. And this was the enough that got me to go, what the heck is going on? So otherwise I would have treated that whole situation with Wesley differently. We would have gone a natural route. We would have not dealt with any chemo, radiation, or anything like that. But I didn't know, and he didn't know. And even though he was starting to look into it, but he didn't, he was kind of like, sugar. He's like, should I eat a lot of sugar? He asked his oncologist, and he had asked me first. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, maybe And he has his oncologist, and his oncologist says, no, it's fine. You can eat whatever you want. And it's like, you asshole.
Yeah.
Ugh. But anyway,
a lot of people still do that these days though. So don't feel bad. Even, 10-ish plus years later, people are still fucking going to the cancer ward and getting their chemo.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, people are covering their faces too. It's just not for us. That's all.
Suit yourself is what I say.
Yeah. I think that was one of the toughest things when I first started to learn that cancer might be able to be dealt with in other ways than what the medical industry tells us, because like when people with cancer, you're like, what do I say to them when they're in all these treatments and stuff? And it kind of goes, it's like the woke raping, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, you can't.
Yeah. I mean, if it's somebody really close to you, it's different. But if it's not, it's like, yeah.
Sometimes it's not different in the sense that, like, if they're close to you and they already sense that you might, I don't know, disagree, then sometimes people that are closer to you are more likely to lash out at you or something,
Yeah, that's true. But I think I just meant it'd be easier because like if it's somebody you hardly, at the time, this guy, I was working at a dealership and the guy who owned the dealership had cancer and he was going through treatments, and I was talking to him about some things, and I didn't really know him that well, so I didn't really say much. I was just seeing it. But if it was somebody I knew, I could just be more straightforward and frank. And like, if they're going to get mad at me, they're going to get mad at me, whatever. It's a different thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, cause I know them. But yeah, it's crazy. Cause at first you just want to run down to the hospital and tell everybody, like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah. So he was on hospice for 5 days at the house, at the apartment where we were. And it was over a weekend. I think it was like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday type of thing. So like through the weekend, it was weird because like, I was like, well, what do we, like, no one came or no one said it, like, cause they basically leave you and then they're like, just call us if you need anything. And it was like, okay. Like, I can't lift him, or if he needs help, you know what I'm saying? And he deteriorated so fast within those 5 days. Like, I was literally floored at how much he deteriorated that quickly. He went from like being able to walk around and do stuff to like not being able to even go to the bathroom by himself. It was just like, and I got to the point where I was like, I can't lift him. I can't do anything. And I called my sister. She's a pediatrician. She came over. She's like, he's severely dehydrated. I'm like, duh. Like, I tried to give him water, but he wasn't even trying to have any water is the problem. So we took him to the emergency room and they put him in ICU. After that, it was it a same hospital? I think he had a doctor that was nearby. So one of the oncologists he had seen before was nearby, not his particular one, but one that he had seen before. So he was nearby, and they kind of knew his situation a little bit. So they called that guy. And he was in the ICU for 5 days. So 5 days in the house, 5 days in the ICU. And on the last day, because the last 2 or 3 days he was on a vent, which he hated. And I don't blame him. And I didn't know what to do. Like, what am I going to do? Tell them not to vent him so he can just like die? It was just like, it was the hardest decision. Like, these were really tough decisions, right? I would never want to go through that crap again. Like, if someone is at home and they're like going to pass away, then let them pass away. You know what I mean? But like with all these things on them, and it was one night he like literally took all the strength he had to like pull it all out, because he was a nurse. So he knew about this stuff. He hated the vent. He did not want to be on it. He pulled it all out at 1 a.m. And I mean, I was at home because they didn't let anybody stay the night in the ICU. So I would go home every night, and then I would come back in the morning. And my family, a lot of my family was coming back with me every day. Finally, oh no, so he ripped it out at like 1 a.m. I guess they put it back in, and then they told me the next day, oh yeah, he ripped it out, but we found it and we put it back in or whatever. So he was on that for a couple of days. On the last day, on 4th of July, we talked to him in the morning, and I asked him if he was ready. Like, because my sister and my family were like, you need to ask him if he's ready to go. And I'm just like, really? This really sucks. So I asked him if he was ready, and I said, because he couldn't talk, obviously. So I just told him to like move his eyes up and down or something, like to tell me that yes. And he was ready. And so I was like, okay, when the nurse comes in a few minutes, I'll tell her that we're going to take it out. And so he was okay with that. So they did. And I don't think 10 minutes passed, and he passed away in 10 minutes from taking the vent out. And if I remember correctly, it was fast. And I remember the nurses and everybody saying that was like one of the fastest they've ever seen. Like, he was ready to go. And, but I just remember because he was just like lying there with his eyes closed or whatever. And then, you see the machine beep, 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 and you see the heartbeat, right? Boom. And then you see it go beep, like end of life. You're like, what? How? I was like, no, like this can't be happening. And I turned to my brother-in-law and I'm like, can you pray for him to like be resurrected from the dead? Cause like, that's a thing, that's a thing that can happen. Right. He's like, that's not how it works. I'm like, but how come it's in the Bible then? Like I believe, like Abraham, this boy can be raised from the dead. Raise him right now. Like, do it. It's doable. I was like, I wasn't going crazy, but I was like, this is not happening. I just could not believe it. And hours later, because, they let you stay with the body for however long you want right there to grieve, but pretty quickly you had to make decisions about what you're going to do. Like, are you going to cremate him? Or are you going to bury him? What are you going to do? Like, so my sister thankfully started making phone calls, and found a place, and he wanted to be cremated. We had talked about it for a long time, and I told him I wanted to, and he told me he wanted to. So, we made the arrangements. My sister made the arrangements, and she talked with me, and then she made the arrangements. And then literally, 4 or 5 hours later, they put him in a body bag, and I have to say goodbye to this body, and I'm not going home with it. Like, he's not coming home with me. It was the most bizarre feeling ever. And afterward, my family, we go, not all of us, but some of us went to a restaurant. My brother, his fiance at the time, some siblings, we go to this Japanese restaurant to have sushi or whatever. I was just like looking at my food and everything, like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. Like, why is everybody else happy? Why is everything okay? And I'm not. I just lost the love of my life here. It was like, that was really tough.
Yeah, I can only imagine, you're in this routine in your life and everything is going one way and you have somebody with you and then just 1 second they're not there anymore.
Yeah. It was really weird. And then I just would go home, and I pretty much was home for a couple of weeks before I went back to work. And I just kind of was like going through the day, just like not really knowing what I was doing, just like making it through one more day. And I was like, God, I want to be there where he's at. Like, why did I have to stay here? Like, he and I wanted to leave together. We talked about this. We talked about this. We were supposed to go together, not separate. Like, he wasn't supposed to go before me, like the Notebook movie. Hello, that's how we were supposed to go. We talked about this. So I was just distraught, every night. And the hardest part were the evenings, because you go to bed in the same bed. And, maybe like during the day you're out and about doing your stuff, you have stuff to do, you have errands to run, whatever, but you get home and there's someone there and you fall asleep in the same bed and all that stuff. So it was just much harder at night. But eventually, I guess my boss at work asked our admin, because she and I were friends, to text me and say, "Are you ready to come back to work?" Jeez. And I was like, "Not really, but I guess. I guess what else am I going to freaking do,
Yeah.
And I was remembering something the other day, because I went through a period of just being like, don't care. I really don't care what you think about me. Like, go F yourself. I really don't give a fuck. Really. Like, people would be mean to me at work and I would be mean back to them. And I never used to be that way. I was very diplomatic. I was very kind. I would try to mend things. I would try to say things in the nicest way. And with some people, if they were going to be effed up to me, I'd just be like, I'd be effed up back to them, and people started complaining about me, like, well, she's had a bad attitude and this, that, and the other. And at the time I was like, oh, really? Do I? Whatever. Like, I just was like, it doesn't matter. I don't care. I was just doing whatever I could just to get through the day. And if I had to do this damn job, then that's what I was going to do. Whether I liked it or not, it was going to get done. If you like it or not, it's going to get done. I don't care, And I was depressed for, in that regard for a while. Like, it took me, I'm going to say it probably took me a couple of years to kind of get back into my usual mood and my usual self that I was, just, happy and jovial and whatnot. I'm going to guess, I don't remember details, but I felt like people were complaining about me for a little while and I didn't care.
Good.
So, yeah. And most recently, with the passing of Andreas, whom, interestingly enough, I was with him for 8 years versus Wesley, with whom I was with about 3 years. So I was with Andreas like more than twice as long as I was with Wesley. And the dynamic was definitely different. With Wesley, everything was like 99.9% of everything was like we agreed. We had a great time. Every once in a while we'd have a discussion or a disagreement about something, but it was very light. We'd figure it out. We'd smooth it out and we were done. We didn't worry.
Was it over grammar? I'm just kidding.
No, it wasn't.
Sorry.
Not that I remember.
So
Honestly, I don't
know.
remember.
Just for everyone listening that doesn't know, Sharon's the best at grammar.
Well,
She's a grammar Nazi.
I'm a grammar queen.
Grammar queen. There you go. Yeah. She's royalty.
The queen of which one? Swords, pentacles.
Yeah, swords probably. The queen of commas.
There you go. Semicolons, commas, apostrophes, whatever. So the dynamic was different between Wesley and then Andreas, which there was a lot more, I don't know, disagreements, fighting, arguing.
It was just a different relationship.
It was a different relationship, but it still felt very, for me, it just felt very strong. Like for whatever reason, I could not let it go. I don't know why. And I would ask God, like, okay, can you please, if this person isn't the right person for me, like, please help me let it go. Like, let me let it go. But I could never let it go until October of 2020. I'm like, wait, when was that? October of 2020. And I just got to the point where I was like, this just is not going anywhere. And there's no point. And I had already, we had been distanced in some ways, and we were still hanging out together, doing stuff together, but there was still a lot of distance, emotional distance. So I was like, let's just, it was weird. The ending was weird because I didn't expect that it was going to happen that way. I just thought, okay, I'll give him some stuff to chew on, like send him some videos about some things that I was looking into. Maybe I was suggesting maybe this could help you. And then I said, would you be interested in looking at it? And he was like, sure. But, it was kind of like I don't know what he's going to do with it. And I thought to myself, well, if he looks into it, then he'll maybe call me or tell me, but from that day forward, I just thought to myself, I'll just kind of do my own thing and see if he has any questions, he can call me. I'm here. He knows where I live. He knows my phone number. He knows my stuff, whatever. He never called. I never called. He never called. I never called. It just like, then it was like 1 week, then it was 2 weeks, then it was a month, then it was 2 months. And then it was funny because a couple months into it, he started kind of like breadcrumbing me. Like he would like something on social media. And then like 2 weeks later, he would like something else. And I was like, dude, yeah, I'm not going to respond to that. Like, if you want to talk to me, you can call me. You know where I freaking live. You know my number. So I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to respond to these freaking breadcrumbs. So I, 4 months into this, what is it called? No contact. And mind you, we live in the same neighborhood. So I would see him sometimes in his car as I was doing a walk or a bike ride or something. I would sometimes see him, but as soon as I saw him, I would turn my head. Like I was not going to acknowledge it because there's no point in me looking for something that's not going anywhere. So my mom's birthday party comes around February 20th. Her birthday was in a couple of days, but my brother was having this at his house. So we went to his house, and right before it's time to cut the birthday cake, I get a phone call from his friends who had never called me before. And I'd only gotten their number. I'd only gotten this lady's number the previous Christmas, not the Christmas that just passed, because I clearly didn't go to that event, but the one before. That's like, and she had never said anything to me, never texted, never called, nothing. And then I see that she's calling me, and I thought, there's only one common denominator here, Andreas. Like, she has no reason to call me. Like, why would she be calling me? This is weird. So I walk over to my brother's room and I answer the phone, and she's like, practically in tears, pretty much in tears. Like, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this. I know you loved him very much, but we found him in his bed. He didn't wake up this morning, basically, like, very, very interesting. I did not know how to feel about that. I don't think I cried right away. I was just in utter shock. I was like, no, this is not real. This is weird. Like, what is happening? This is bizarre. I just saw him the other day. I had just been on my walk and he was coming up the street on his bike, and I saw him and I turned my head and I just kept walking, literally maybe 5 days prior to that. And I'm like, no way. I'm just baffled. So different.
Yeah, it was way different because it was more of a out of the blue and you weren't in contact with them.
No. And it was almost like there was unresolved stuff, right? Because with Wesley, I didn't grieve Wesley in the sense of there was unresolved stuff and why couldn't this, and I wish this, and why did that. It was like, because I as soon as he passed, I kind of was like, as much as it hurt, I was still like, I know it happened for a reason. It was his time. Like, who am I to say? Like, that was his time. And clearly it wasn't my time. I'm struggling with it, but it wasn't my time. I want to be where he's at, but it's not my time. So, but I didn't ever have any, like, I don't know, questions or like, and when Dre passed, it was just like, it's not like I have questions, but it's just different. I'm just like, what was that all about? Like, it's totally different. And I have moments of like caring about him, thinking back on memories and caring about him because I did. And then moments where I'm like, you
son
bastard, son of a, like, how dare you do that to me? Whatever in the past. There's a little tiny little fly going around. I don't know. Maybe that's Dre flying around me, distracting me. Just kidding. He knew I hated flies. But anyway, it's different. And, sometimes I fluctuate between having a moment of being upset about him and the things that made me feel hurt, even though I know that it's all me. I let myself go through that experience knowing the type of person I was with and that those things could happen and I could be hurt by those things. I let myself go through them. So I can't blame anybody, but I still get sometimes upset about those things. And then I fluctuate back to like feeling like I cared about him and like in some ways feeling sorry for him in the sense of like, he just didn't know he just didn't grasp what this realm was about and that he could heal those things. And that makes me kind of feel sorry for him because he never was able to heal the deep wounds that caused him to be so unable to be vulnerable with me, because that's literally what it boiled down to, is there was no ability for vulnerability. And but kind of knowing what I know now, I just go back to knowing that he's in a better place and he's figuring out what he's going to do next lifetime, and he's just going to have to figure it out. And I send him love, and I send him gratitude for all the things he did to help me, because he did in so many ways help me figure out a lot of things, and just help me in general in my house and with my cars and a lot of stuff. So it's different, and I might shed a tear.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I mean, yeah, maybe he somehow knew on some level that he was gonna not long for this world. So his instinct was to just push people away, even if he didn't realize it consciously. Maybe that's what he was doing, I mean, there's who knows, but yeah. And the other thing I was going to say is when you sent him those videos, maybe they did resonate, and maybe that's why he didn't, because you kind of had him in checkmate. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, look, this is how you're behaving. This is how you're treating me. Here's some examples of what it is, so he just, it's hard, anytime anybody that's listening knows, anytime that you have to try to question a behavior, especially if it's a behavior that's your whole life is based around, that's why a lot of people just ignore it and keep going, and just do their thing and live their life, because it's tough, man. I get it. So so it's been about a year now.
Yeah, it just a year and like a week or two, February 20th of 2021 was the day that he didn't wake up the next morning. And so the last year has been interesting. I started off by I was going to make this album of pictures of him and send it to his brothers. And I was all gung-ho. I was doing that. But then I got stopped because, there were, sometimes it was related to just being tough going through pictures. Not super tough, but just sometimes I was like, nah, I don't feel like doing this right now. But the other thing was that I was doing it through stupid Google Photos. And I got to a point where I was like, why is it showing the location of this photo? Then whoever can see this album, which I was only going to send it to his brothers, which is fine. But if just some random person got a hold of it, I didn't want physical locations of where I live, where he lives, where, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, why is it showing the location? I want to remove and it wouldn't let me. It wouldn't let me remove it. It was just so I left the project sitting there for months. And I recently came back to it. And then I was fiddling around trying to figure out, could I somehow export them, remove the location, send it back, and then maybe that would work. And I did all that. And then I went back into the album, and then I realized, oh, now it tells me now, finally, maybe Google finally figured shit out. And it says, this location will not be shown to people who can view this album. And I was like, thank you. That's all I freaking wanted this whole time. But you know what? I also am thankful because it was for a reason, I wasn't meant to put the album together a year ago. I was meant to put it together now, because now I've been able to see a lot of things since then. And I can see things differently, and I can be more compassionate as I create this album, and I can put pictures in there that I wouldn't have put in before. Maybe I was like, no, I'm not going to put that picture in. But now I'm like, you know what? Who cares? That was his life. That was my life. That was our life. I'm going to put that picture in there. I don't care. You know what I mean? So it's all for a reason.
Yeah. I could totally see that. So Google helped you out a little bit there.
Yeah, they did. So even though they're assholes, you know, it was good. It was good for something. Everything happens for a reason.
That's right. Everything
Yeah.
does.
It sure does. So
Allegedly.
I took about a lot of time, I think, probably with my oversharing.
Oh, that's okay. That's what the show's all about. And if we go long, we could just do another episode.
I like that.
Where
are we at, by the way? Because I didn't pay attention.
I wasn't really looking. The first time I looked, it was 5:09 my time, and it's 5:28 now. But we might have started a little before 5. I don't know because I don't know.
I don't either. All right.
That's how much we enjoy our conversations. We don't even know.
I'll pay attention.
So I guess I could talk about some of my experiences then, and this will probably be a little more lighthearted for all you people. So this is great because it's different for me. It wasn't a spouse. The first person who I remember dying was Santa Claus. I killed him myself, so that's how I know he's not real. I never saw my dad after that, though. No. So the first person I really remember dying and that I had any kind of real contact. I mean, my fourth grade teacher died. I forgot all about this.
Oh, wow.
Well, when I was in 5th grade, the teacher I had for 4th grade, she was still the 4th grade teacher. She had gotten leukemia, I believe, and died. So that was kind of weird, but she was a little older. But it was like my first taste, I guess. And then the real one, though, was my cousin. When I was 16, my cousin was 25, and we were pretty close. And he died in a motorcycle accident. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night, and the phone rang. That's what it was. Remember the phone, everybody? The phone in the house rang. And it kind of woke me up. And then I heard my mom and my dad were upstairs because they lived upstairs. My mom was crying, like freaking out. And I was like, what happened? And they're just like, Gary died. Like, it's like, oh shit. So I was like floored because at the time I really, like I said, I never knew anybody that had passed away before. And I just never had that thought in my brain, kind of like you were saying, like, this isn't real. And I was really upset. I was crying a lot. I remember going outside, like I just wanted to be alone. I couldn't be around people. Like everybody else.
You were
16.
And he was
25.
Okay.
And I just didn't really want to be around anybody. I wanted to be by myself, like everybody. And that's one thing I noticed, like everybody came together and they wanted to like hug and all this stuff. And I was just like, I just want to be alone. Like, can't deal with this right now. And I remember after that, my performance in school. So this happened in July before my junior year. And I just switched to a public school from being in Catholic school my whole life, my sophomore year. And then my junior year, I was just like, fuck this. Like I still went to class and stuff, but I just didn't care. And like you said, you kind of treated people differently. I treated my life totally differently. I was just like, this could end at any time. It's kind of like the typical thing you see in a TV, like made for TV series, like when someone's brother dies, they're like, but we could just die at any time. What's the point of this, man? This is bullshit. So I was pretty much there.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is nobody really had an answer for me because I was really right. It's like, why the fuck am I going to school? If I could die, why would I spend all my time here? But nobody answered that question. Good still point. Right. So my grades suffered pretty bad. And then later that, and this is how I kind of look at it. Because these days, I mean, I guess we'll get into that, how we feel about death these days. But I feel like back then, though, I didn't just mourn for his death. I just mourned for the fact that people are going to die and everyone's going to die and I'm going to die. Like I was just mourning for the whole thing, and I was like, got it out of my system. And then my grandmother, so let's see, I was 16. So I think it was the following year. Yeah, it was the following year. It was a senior. And my grandmother passed away that November. And she had moved away, though, because we have relatives in Alabama. So like a year or two prior, she moved to Alabama. So we had like a party for her, and she was older anyway. So we kind of all thought that was I guess maybe, I don't know if we thought the last time we are going to see her, but but that's kind of what I was thinking. I'm like, yeah, probably, because I had two grandmothers, but both my grandfathers already died. My dad's dad died when he was 4 or 5, and my mom's died. My mom's dad died when I was like 5 or 6, I think. So, but when my grandmother died, I think I might have disassociated from it a little bit. Like I was like, I don't know, but I don't know if it's because, like I said, I just kind of feeling like I just knew she was old and gonna die anyway. Kind of like you were saying about your dad, I was like in that headspace about it. So they brought her back up to Connecticut after she passed away to have a funeral and everything. And I hated wakes and funerals. Like, I'm still not really a big fan. And it's not because of the death aspect. Like, again, I just realized I just like to be alone, like, I mean, I changed I'll like, I used to not really go to a lot of funerals or wakes and stuff, but I'll go now because I realized, my point of view and my attitude and my whole, just myself is like good at a funeral for other people too. It's good for me too, actually, to help the people, but it's good for me to be there. Like when my other grandmother died, my mom's mom died 2016, I believe. I can't even remember. And I spoke at her funeral, said some words because everyone else is kind of upset. And, I'm the only one who's like comfortable in front of talking to people, comfortable talking in front of people. So, but when my dad's dad died when I was 17, so I was like, I told him like, I can't go to the fucking wake. Like, I'm not going to go. So I didn't go. And, I've told this story on stage before. This girl that I was dating at the time came over and I lost my virginity. So I lost my virginity at the same time as my grandmother's wake, I guess you could say. It wasn't a funeral. Yeah.
Wow.
So, I know. It's crazy, right? And she
didn't, because you said you didn't want to go, and so you didn't go.
Yeah, I wanted to stay home. And she was like, I want to come over. And I'm like, I'd rather hang out with her than go to this wake. Like, I just didn't want to deal with it. Again, I'm not saying it's the right move, but I just didn't like to be around people. So yeah. After that, I'm trying to think. No, there was something that had happened. So between my cousin and my grandmother dying, a couple of my friends got killed in a car accident. So that really just kind of pushed me further to this whole, like, who the fuck cares? Like, this is gonna, because this one girl that I know died in a car accident. And then like months later, this other kid that I know died in another car accident. Like, it was all drinking and driving, people partying and all the stuff, and probably on drugs too. So it's, it was crazy. But so at that point I was just like, who cares? Like, we could just go at any moment, really. I mean, I didn't really have the feeling like I was going to die, but I just looked at everything that we did in society and I was like, this is fucking bullshit, man. Why are we doing all this stuff? And yeah, then so by the time my grandmother died, I was kind of just like, all right, this is it. But more recently, though, I've had friends that passed away. And in 2019, I had a friend pass away. I think I might have talked about this too. And he got killed in a motorcycle accident too. And he had a wife. He just had married and a daughter. Or he still has a daughter. And it was really hard because he's younger than me, and his wife was like, I think he was like in his mid-30s and his wife was like in her late 20s, so it was just a huge kind of shock for everybody. But I feel like I just didn't take it the same way as everybody. I think that because, like I said, when my cousin died, I'm like, okay, this is a given now. This is going to happen. So I think that's the way I look at my life now. Like, I kind of when I'm spending time with people, I always have that feeling like, I don't want to say it like that, but I just know it's a temporary thing. I think so many people in this society have this feeling like everything's going to last forever. And I was over that, like, in one shot. So I was still upset. And at one point, I think I had some tears come. But I spoke at his funeral also. And because I was really the only one who could like put words together and talk. You know what I mean? Like, and we're going to talk about that later and stuff, but I just wanted to bring that up just as some of my experiences of people I know that have passed away. But yeah, it's just a really crazy thing. I mean, I've known a lot of people who've passed away, really, honestly, throughout my life. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll talk about other stuff pertaining to that later in the episode.
Okay.
But those are my experiences. So I never had like a loved person that like, I can't even talk. So a wife or a girlfriend or anything like that. I've never had. Even girls that I've dated, I don't think anybody that I have dated is like dead now, so I don't even have that like experience or point of view.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think recently anyway. Well, not that I've dated anyone that recently, but
Well, you made me think of a couple of aunts of mine and family members that have died as well, prior to Wesley passing and some after as well. And I would actually go to those services. Like they were two of them were in New Mexico, because that's where two of my aunts lived. And I drove my mom and dad over there one or two times to go to those events and that sort of thing. So mostly it was like Catholic Church of like mass, and like I personally didn't like to go to those because they were so boring. So like for me, it was like, ugh, we have to go to another like Catholic mass for like someone's funeral. Like,
dude, try going to Catholic school for like 13 years.
Kill me now.
We were always going to and they'd get mad at us like for not paying attention or falling asleep. We're like, we're kids and you have us in a church on a Tuesday at 10 a.m.
An adult would fall asleep. Jesus Christ. Sorry.
How dare you?
I know. How dare me? But yeah. So there were other people, right, that have passed in my life, but I guess I hit the two severe ones. I got the really close relationships that boom, we're gone.
Yeah. But I think people are going to love it, by the way. Thank you so much for sharing all that stuff. I'm sure it wasn't easy, but this is oversharing, and we overshare whether we want to or not.
Sometimes it just comes out.
Yeah. So after our oversharing section about our experiences with death, now we want to talk about the concept of death and what exactly it means, right? It's because everybody has a different idea of what happens to you when you die, all this stuff. And I wanted to talk about how it like what death is actually like, right? What it is. And it's one of the biggest, like everybody basically has a fear of it. Nobody really, especially in this society, everyone, like nobody even talks about it really. I mean, if they do, a lot of times it's like they're just trying to get sympathy or something, right? A lot of times, unless it's something that just directly happened, I get it. But some people will talk about it that way. But in other regards, they never really talk about our own mortality or our own death. And I think that what's misunderstood about death is that it's kind of, so people, if you think about it this way, like people are like, I don't want to die. I don't want this person to die, all this stuff. You want to be mortal, right? You want to live here forever. And I think that it's just not, I don't think people understand what that exactly means, because I think there's a reason we have a certain lifespan and we have to go through what we do, and we only exist here for the amount of times that we do. I think it's like a gift, really. And that's how it's described in the Silmarillion. Well, actually, no, is it? Yeah, it is the Silmarillion. And they also talk about it in the appendices of Lord of the Rings, I think. But basically what I'm talking about is the line of kings that are men, and they're from the Numenorians. So if you're familiar with Lord of the Rings, Aragorn, Strider, He's the king. He's the heir to the throne. Now, all his lineage, all his family, in some of the books, they talk about his ancestors and how all that started. And the way it started was they had these really long lives. They lived like 500 years. And it was basically a gift that was given to them by the creator that they're able to die. And because elves, the way they live, they won't die unless they die from being slain. Like you could kill them, but they won't die from old age or sickness.
Interesting.
They're just, in the way it's put in that book, is that they're bound to the whole realm. So they look at it as a realm, Arda. Middle Earth is part of Arda, which is like the whole realm. So you could look at it as, Earth or whatever, right? Our realm. They said that when the elves die, they go to the halls of Mandos, which is where the gods live, I guess you could say. And in the beginning, the first couple ages is actually part of our Earth. And then everything bends. And some people say it bends and becomes a planet, but I'm like, he never said that. He just said that it bended. So anyway, then the gods are in this other place, but it's still part of Arda. It's still part of that realm. And then when the elves die, they have to go there. And then after a while, then their soul can get judged. Sometimes they could remain in heaven. Sometimes they have to remain in this like purgatory area or whatever, but they're never allowed to leave. And when men die, nobody knows their fate. They're actually not bound to this world. They get to leave this world. But they don't say anything after that. They don't really know what happens. So when the men, I think it's the beginning of the second age, the men they have this kingdom. It's called Numenor. They have this island or whatever. They have all these great kings. One of them is a brother of Elrond, who you probably know from Lord of the Rings. So his brother chooses to be mortal because they get this choice. It's a whole long story. So he chooses to be an elf. His brother chooses to be mortal, and he's the first king of Numenor, and he lives for 500 years. So the first couple of kings, it's going great. Every king gets to a certain age. He's like, you know what? I'm going to give it to my son. He could take over. So they don't wait till they die. But after a while, they start to want to live longer, and they start to question it. And they're like, well, why do we have to die and all this stuff? And so there's these elves from the sacred realm that will come to their island every once in a while out of the west, and they're never allowed to sail west. They could sail east, north, and south, but they just can't sail west into it's like heaven or whatever, right? It's the undying lands. But they could see at some nights, on a really clear night, you could see like a tower or whatever. You could see the light. So everybody respects it. It's this great thing. But as civilization keeps going and everything, these people start to question it. And one of the elves from the Undying Lands, like one of the ship comes over and they're talking to him, and they're like, he's explaining to the current king. He's like, listen, this is a gift. He's like, we're bound here. When we die, we can't leave. He's like, we're part of this earth. It's part of us, but we can't ever go anywhere. My nose is itching crazily, of course. So look at this as a gift. He's like, you don't know what's coming next, but like at least you get to leave here and you get to go on to another thing. There's another purpose for you. The god of that world is called Eru Luvatar. They're like, Luvatar has another plan for you. You should be grateful. So I think in the beginning, that's kind of how it was looked at. And it's funny because in that story, you could see how materialism falls in very closely with this whole concept of not wanting to die. So as they lose their faith in what's going to happen and all this stuff, they get a lot more material. And then the kings start to, because they're on this island between what's called Middle Earth and Arda. So they start to take ships over to Middle Earth. And when they do that at first, they're really cool. But after a while, when they're starting to question death and wanting to live longer, they start to become tyrants, and they start to like take people's land and want dominion, and they want to like rule over all these people. So they start to go there and like get taxes and all the stuff from them instead of helping them. And they also, what was the other thing I was going to say? Fear of death. Oh yeah. So the kings also don't give up their kingship until they die. Like one king just holds on to the bitter end and he dies, and then his son takes over. And then after that, it becomes a tradition. So it's like everything slowly but surely gets screwed up. And it really just it all came down to like a fear of death. So I just wanted to put that out there because I really feel that's what the whole issue with death in our society is. It's all really just out of fear.
Yeah, for sure.
And if there's nothing to fear, then it's just bullshit. Like if you have faith, if you have trust in whatever this realm is, excuse me, then you got to know that where we're going to next is just going to be, I don't want to say like better because I don't know, probably better, but it's just going to be a step in this process of the evolution of our soul, I guess you could say that way,
Right.
or our being. Yeah.
What's interesting for me is as I look back and I think back on how I used to, you know, how I said to you before, and I might have said it on a show before, that I feel like I was always living in the present moment, but not realizing that that's what I was doing. When people would talk about this realm and what it was and what it meant to die and where we were going when we died, even though I would, you know, was indoctrinated to believe a certain way, right? Like, oh, it's heaven or hell or whatever, right? It was still in some ways and allegedly in my mind, even though I never said those words, but it was like, well, how do they freaking know? Like, they don't know. Like, do we really know? And it's not that I said those things, but it's also like I didn't necessarily believe it 100%. It's almost like I left it out there as an option, right? Even though I was indoctrinated in that way, it somehow still was kind of just like an option for me. So when if I ever thought about if I were going to die, I would try to imagine, well, if these people say there's a such thing as heaven, and, you know, I never imagined, I wasn't one of those people that like condemned myself and was like, I'm such a bad person, I must be going to hell. I was like, I'm going to heaven. I don't know where you going, but I'm going to heaven. I don't, you know, whatever. Like, I know I'm going to be walking up them steps, and St. Peter's going to open that door for me, that gate, that golden gate. So I don't know why you playing.
Walking down them streets paved with gold.
That's what I'm saying, you know. And the funny part was Wesley would tell me, like, if I go before you, I'm going to just be waiting for you on the steps. Like, I'll be right there. I'm just going to be waiting for you. And I'd be like, don't talk like that. You're not going, you know, it's going to be some time before we leave here. So don't play. But he always told me that he would just be waiting for me, you know, at the pearly gates, you know. But so I never imagined myself going to the other place. I was just like, you know, I'm a child of God. I'm going to go to the blissful place. I'm going to go to heaven. Like, I don't know what that other place is. I don't want to go there. I'm going to heaven. And I would just imagine, like, well, what's heaven going to be like? Like, and why is there a hell, and what are people going to be experiencing in hell? And if we're supposedly supposed to live forever, like, there's this whole concept of that, things that did not make sense to me. Like, okay, number one, I was thinking about this the other day too. Sorry, I have a carnelian stone in my hand that I'm playing with. We have a section in the scripture that says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But then they're like, oh, we're going to live forever. And then it's like, but if there's a forever, then that means there was always a forever, which means you were never created, which means you never have an ending. So then why is there a creation? I'm like, you either have a creation and an end date, like, because if you create something, then it has an end date, or you have infinity. You have source that always existed and always comes back to itself, type of thing. It's not that I knew those things back then, but I'm only starting to like put it together now. But even then I was like having hints of those things, like, you know, it's just thoughts that would come to my mind that nothing really like gelled, nothing made sense. So it was almost like I was always open to possibilities of what this realm could be. And if I were to die, where I would go, what would that look like, that sort of thing. But I can't ever say that I didn't fear death necessarily. The only thing that I was like, God, please, if you're going to take me, don't drown me, please. Don't asphyxiate me and don't drown me. Like, get it done like that. Because if you're going to take me, just be done. I just want to be done. Like, make it quick. Aneurysm, like something like boom, where I just like fall over and I'm gone because I don't want to be suffering. I'm sorry. Like, and I don't want to be in a sick bed the last 5 years of my life where I'm just like slowly dying. No, I don't want that either. So I never had this like fear of death really, which I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I never thought about that really until now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I almost drowned. Ooh, we talked about that before, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, what's interesting is I didn't realize this until my sister told me. When I was really small, I was probably like 1 or 2 years old. I almost drowned too. I didn't know that. And it's not that I have a fear of water, but that's probably where the fear of drowning comes in, where it's like, if I'm going to die, don't let me drown. Like I don't want that. And that's probably where that comes from, is that near drowning experience when I was little.
Yeah, I was always afraid of the water when I was younger also. But then my friends had pools, and we got a pool, and then I used to go to the river. Like, I overcame it, but yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah. Yeah. But just an interesting thing to throw in there, because I just thought of it right now. There's this show on Netflix. I know Netflix, but it's called Surviving Death. And it has like 5 or 6 episodes. And it talks about near-death experiences and people who have had them and what they experienced, and just a lot of the studies that have been done with these people, and doctors who have studied people who have had those experiences and how they view those things. Well, the first story in that video series is of a lady who had a drowning experience. I mean, and she had a near-death experience where she saw her body and everything. You know, saw people trying to resuscitate her, and she saw all of that. And the weird thing to me was, when she was going through the drowning experience, she said it was blissful. Like, it's almost like she didn't even experience a suffering while drowning. It's almost like she didn't even, it was bizarre to me. And I'm like, you know what? As long as it's blissful, I don't care if you burn me like a witch. I don't care if, you know what I'm saying? As long as source makes it blissful, I don't care. You know, just take me, however you're going to take me. But lately I just been thinking, I would like to learn how Enoch and Elijah and Saint Germain and Jesus, I would like to know how they like dematerialized and materialized. Because I could just be like, you know what? I think I'm ready to go, y'all. And I'd be like, sayonara. And I just disappear. You know what I'm saying? Like, bye. Bye, Felicia.
Just ascend into the waters above. Yeah.
Right. Because I was just thinking about this the other day, because like Enoch, it says Enoch walked with God and then he was no more. It's like, because he was in some of the extra biblical texts, like the Apocryphal, some of these other texts, probably the book of Enoch, which I was looking into back when I was on the Zen Garcia channel, listening to all those and listening to him read all those books. Enoch essentially started spending more time with God, like basically probably meditation, you know, like away from people, meditating more, And so it said he started doing that until he just was spending all of his time there. And it was just almost like, well, then he was just like gone. Like, and I remembered in that book that I'm reading, the Jesus Code, which I'm still slowly reading it. But that guy in, I think it was Iceland or Greenland or something, can't remember where it was. He would meditate, and people would see that he would go in it, like his body, parts of his body would go in and out. Like they weren't like his hand would disappear or something. And these people, there were people who witnessed it. This was like in the, I want to say 1800s or something like that. I can't remember. But people witnessed that, him doing that. He was able to go in and out. I mean, can you imagine that? I mean, goes to show you what this realm really is. Our bodies are our energy, and we materialize, we create what we are with our mind. Could it be? It's just fascinating. So fascinating. But I derailed us. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. We're oversharing.
Yeah. And by the way, I think we're at the 1.5 hour mark, just from my estimation, just so you have an idea. So if you want to we can keep going if you want.
Yeah, let's keep going, because have we really I don't think it's been that long. I mean, it could have been, but
okay. What does your thing say?
The first time I looked, it's been I'd say about an hour 15.
What does
maybe.
Zoom say?
It doesn't. Oh, it says the whole call's been going for, I don't even know now that it's recording. It's not telling me on here.
Yeah, but tell me the full amount, even if it's.
Yeah, it's not telling me.
Nah. Okay. Usually you can say something.
Yeah, I know. That's weird. Okay. That's why I don't understand what's going on. Maybe it's because I'm on this computer.
It wants us to keep going.
Yeah, it does. So next we're going to talk about, well, I guess we're kind of already talking about how we feel about when people die. So we could just kind of keep going with that, because you were already talking about your own lack of fear of death and all that stuff.
Right. It's almost like I didn't have that, even though there was some indoctrination, like we've been saying for the religion episodes, that there was some level of indoctrination that, fear, and then you're going to go to hell, or you're and it's like it's almost like it didn't affect me. I was like, I'm going to heaven, bitches. I don't care what you say. Like, so I didn't have the fear, but I guess the way I look at it now is having just experienced what I've experienced and learned maybe from other people's thoughts, philosophies, experiences. The way I see things now, and it jives with what you and I talk about a lot on this show, is that it all boils down to someone's choice. People make choices in their lives that lead to this little fly. I swear to God, Dre, if that's you, please leave me alone.
Fly away.
I've never had a freaking fly in here. It's like, it's so bizarre. Okay. Anyway.
Spring's coming.
Yeah, whatever that means. I don't know. So, I just see it as people making choices in their life, and the choices that they make lead to their, it's like karma. It's like cause and effect. And you get to where you get to because of the choices you've made in your life. So even if let's say it's a car accident or something, you got into the car when you wanted to get into that car, you made a choice to go wherever you were going to get to where you were going. Yeah, that car hit you and maybe it wasn't your fault, but I'm so serious. This little fly. And the other thing too is, as much as it may be kind of hooey or hokey or whatever you want to call it, woo woo. The way I see things is that we just return back to source, right? And when we return back to source, potentially we make decisions on what we're going to do in the next life, if that's what we're going to do, if we're going to come back. And we know, like, even though we've forgotten, but we know what we're going to do, and we know how what's going to happen. We know how we're going to leave. We made those choices already. Source already made those choices. So, because we are from source, it's like we're a part of the whole, of source, a part of the divine. So when someone passes away anymore, and I always felt like this, but I never knew that that's why, you know what I mean? I'm just like, well, it was their time. Like, I can't really super be. And like I said, sometimes I would empathize or sympathize with people and just be like, oh, that's going to be really hard because now their mom's gone. And can you imagine how that's going to feel like now they have to do this, that, and the other, and that's going to be different. So those are the things that would make me cry, sympathizing with someone else. But at the same time, I was still like, but that was their time, or whatever it was that was meant to, whatever this was that happened. I have a cousin who died some years ago. And then not long after, her husband was murdered. It was just bizarre. Like, some dude came and in the front yard of the house or whatever, murdered this man, my cousin's husband. Now, and she had already passed away. He was a widower. Now he died. And then he had 2 little girls and a son. And I was just like, that is like, how do you, like, I just was like, for the 2 little girls, that's so rough. Like, but what can I do? It's like, that is what happened. What can you do? And I mean, they don't live here. They live in California. And they had family members that, took them in and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to wrap your head around stuff sometimes. And some people may think I'm cold and, too black and white, or that I'm unfeeling. And I know my father-in-law, kind of felt like that with me, with Wesley, because he thought I was just not, or maybe he thought I just was not getting it. Like, you don't get it. He's dying. And I'm like, no, he's fine. Like, no, he's going to be fine. He's going to get out of this hospital. We're going to go home. And he's like, he was telling my sister-in-law, like, is she here? Like, she's not here. I clearly I wasn't, but it was also the sense that I wasn't necessarily worried, perhaps. Like, maybe I wasn't worried about those sorts of things. And I looked at things in a positive way, with a positive light. But yeah, the way I see things now, we all go back to source. And there's this theory that right now that I've heard of, and some people I know are looking into it right now, but that you either follow the white light or go through the white tunnel or the whatever. And Santos Bonacci and other people, I think, what's his name? Eric Dubé have talked about this recently, about not following the white light and not going through the tunnel, because that brings you into your next life, allegedly. But me personally, I mean, I think to myself, well, in this life, one should probably already know that you're either going to come back or you're not, like, by the kind of life you've lived and all that stuff. Right. So like, so if you're dying, it's not going to be like, oh, I better not follow that white light. It's going to be like, you're going to know what to do. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just feel like people who are meant to come back are just going to come back. And people who aren't. I mean, they're going to stay with source, basically, is what I mean.
Can you
They're
imagine if
not-
that's what it was? Like you live this whole life and at the end, it's like a game where you got to play like Super Mario Brothers and you got to get all the way to the end level. It takes you forever. And then there's just this simple one decision you have to make, but you don't know
like,
it.
do I follow the white light or not? Like,
And then
which
every
one do I
time you
pick?
just
Which
keep
is it?
following the white light. You're like, damn it, I did it again.
No. Way to bring humor to the death topic.
That's pretty, that'd be hilarious. I mean, it would suck, but it'd be like, damn it, not again.
Now I have to live another 100 years approximately. But yeah.
Yeah, I could see what you're saying, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I think that now when I look at death, it's when somebody says, it wasn't their time and all this stuff. I know what they mean, but they're wrong though, because it's what happened, and if you're just looking at, again, we're gonna sound cold when we say stuff like this, but it's already what happened. It's already done. It's already in the past. So therefore, it was meant to happen in some way, and it did. It did happen. It's already done. It's the past, and you can't change it. So I think acceptance is a big role. It's just like the stages of grief, and I think some people just take a while to get to acceptance. I think in my own case, I can accept it quicker just because it's so logical, and then I think my acceptance of it is where I have a problem sometimes, because then I'm like, why don't I seem as sad as people around me, or as upset, or, should I be more sad? And it could make you feel guilty. Actually, sometimes it's really strange. That's what used to happen to me a lot when I was younger. And I think though, after we die, it's hard really to make any claims at all, because I think everything we say and we've been told, and the things that we think we know, it's like an allegory for actually what happens. It's the only thing that could maybe come down to us would be some kind of allegory of way it can happen. But I do believe that this realm is some kind of, for lack of a better word, like a training exercise kind of, and we're in this realm to learn about karma and natural law and all these things. So I don't really, I've lost my fear of death a while ago, and it really just has to do with the fact that it's like, we don't know. Well, I forgot what I was going to say, but the other thing is that, like, we don't know what's going to happen. So why would we be afraid of it? Like, if all these synchronicities happen, if all these different things happen, why should we think it's going to be any worse after we die? And like you said, with the whole bliss thing, I mean, I've heard some people say that because they say that the human body could secrete DMT or whatever it is. So some people think that you just get this dump of chemicals in your brain, and you're just like, woo, you're just like sailing out, I mean, who knows? I don't really know. I guess it also depends on the way that you die and your acceptance of it. And maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe when you get that dump, that's when you see the light,
Yeah.
and you can accept it or not, or whatever. But yeah, that's how I feel about it in that regard. It's like, I don't know. So I just leave it a mystery,
Right. Well, and you mentioned guilt, and you've mentioned it, and I was thinking about it. So funny, synchronicity. But I just want to say this to people who have lost and feel guilt afterward. There's nothing to feel guilty about, unless you intentionally hurt somebody and then you killed them, then maybe you should feel some guilt. But, people just dying and then you going, oh, well, I should have, or I could have, or I would have, or it's like, it is what it is. You didn't do those things, and it's okay. Like, what if this person was going to go regardless of whether you did those things or not, and it's funny because I never felt guilt. Like when Wesley died, it's not like I was like, I wish I could have, or I wish I would have, because I always go back to intention. Like, I didn't know, like, my intentions were always good. But let's say I had known about natural processes of healing and I didn't tell him and I didn't work with him about them, then I could probably feel guilty. But because I didn't know, I can't have any guilt over something I didn't know. It's like, I didn't know. And there was a purpose for that. I wasn't supposed to know. Maybe his passing was a catalyst for me to wake up to the deception of the medical industry and all this other stuff and wake up to a lot of things. It's all for a reason. And so I just don't think there should be any guilt. And I don't think people should worry themselves and put that on themselves.
Yeah, that's a hard one, especially when it's like when somebody dies and it's more self-inflicted, not even suicide specifically, but like drugs or whatever. Or like I know people, one of my brother's friends, my brother let him, my brother had a motorcycle and he let my friend borrow it just to go around the block with another friend, and he hit a telephone pole and died. So
that has to feel really tough.
Yeah.
It has to feel really tough.
And the thing about that really is that it's like you were saying, people make choices, people do things, and things happen. Like, yeah, you could have said no, but who knows what could have happened after you said no. You know, he could have just
been like, I'm going to take it anyway.
Dick, and then something else happens and he, so
yeah.
And the guilt I was talking about specifically, like I know what you're talking about, but I was talking about like, if somebody dies and I don't cry or don't seem to be so upset about it, then I used to be like, feel weird about it. Like, am I a psychopath? Like, what's going on?
Okay. Yeah. That too. And that you can, it's like everybody processes death differently. And that's a good point, because when we had Wesley's memorial service at the church, I talked to people. I did not cry one time. I could literally talk to people about him and be myself totally fine, because I felt like I did that all the time anyway. People would be like, oh, your husband, this, that, and the other. And we talk and, I'd show them pictures or whatever, right? It's like, those are just the things that I did. So it just was natural, like, to talk about him. So I didn't have to cry. The only time I felt like I had to cry was when I got home and he wasn't there, because then it was like really obvious. It was something different. So when I was at the memorial service, people were very surprised that I was able to like get up, and I wasn't one to like speak in public, but I sang in public all the time. So I was able to write some words. I had written some words down and I said them and I read them out about him and what I thought about him. And, and then I sang a song. And people were just like, I don't know how you did that. And I mean, I kind of don't know either, but it is what it is. I wasn't sad in the sense of like, I knew he was an amazing person and I was celebrating his amazingness by telling him writing some words down and speaking those out to him and singing a song to him or to people or whatever, and yeah, I didn't cry at all during his whole service.
Yeah, I think that brings us right into our next thing we want to talk about, which is perfect, which is like the fine line between repressing and accepting. Like, so when somebody dies, there's a fine line between acceptance and then repressing those feelings. And I think that it could look the same, and people who are in their grief and they're only really used to their own point of view and they don't empathize a lot with people, kind of like when I was younger, like, I'm not just saying that I'm special, but now that I can empathize a little more with people, it's easier for me to it's easier for me not to judge them and their behavior. Whereas somebody might see me or you at Wesley's funeral not crying and they could make judgments because they're so upset and they're so crying. They're like, how could, that's his wife, how come she not totally devastated? And how could she be standing here talking and all this stuff? And I think it really does have to do with acceptance. I mean, yes, you're still sad and you're still upset, but it was more of a private thing for you. It wasn't about a public display of being upset and crying and freaking out about it.
And there's a different perception too, because like, I'm not saying that people were saying those things about me, like, how dare she?
Oh yeah.
Some people were like, wow, she's so strong. That's mostly the kind of reaction that I got from people. And I'm just like, I just am. I'm not trying to be anything.
Yeah. And that's the same thing. So they're judging you as just being a strong person. And maybe you are, I'm not saying you're not, but it was more about acceptance, because it doesn't matter how strong you are. If you can't accept something, you're going to beat yourself into the ground over it,
Very good point.
But strength helps too, because then you can rely on it once you accept it. And the strength actually could help you to accept it,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I always just say, just every time you leave somebody, just act like they're going to be dead. No, that's the wrong way to put it. I just treat, this is a better way to put it. I just treat every time I hang out with somebody, I just treat it like it could be their last, or it could be our last time hanging out, but
that's living in the present moment, right?
Yeah.
Treating each moment as special.
Exactly. And I also think that, I don't remember what I was going to say. It's all right. But yeah, no, yeah. It is really about living in the moment. It'll come back to me. It's fine. It always does. Trust me.
Yeah.
I want to shut my brain up.
I feel like we've gone a while. So
yeah, I was in about 10 minutes. I was going to wrap it up, I think. So,
okay.
What we could do, we could just finish up this section and we could leave the last.
You don't want to save this section for the next episode?
No, I'm saying this section we're on now, we could just kind of finish it up. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
So I'm going to try to give some examples though, because about repressing and see, sometimes I don't even know. Honestly, I even look at my own behavior and I'm like, well, like when my friend died in 2019, I'm like, am I just like this person who could see things? And that's, it's funny that I ask these questions. So, in 2019, when he died and everyone was, obviously everyone's real upset. I was upset and everything, but like I said, like you said, you were able to talk at the funeral and, say words. And I was able to do that too, because really, honestly, nobody was able to really do it. And his wife at the time she was a mess. And I freaking totally get it, dude. It's got to be so scary to have a baby and then all of a sudden your husband's gone, and he was such a great person. But I would ask myself, I'm like, am I repressing this or am I just accepting it? It's like a really fine line of what's going on. So I would even try to ask myself that. But then as the year went on, 2020, 2021 and all this stuff, I could see the people around me and their behavior. And I could see how my behavior was so much different. And I was able to accept things and reject things, and like call stuff out. And a lot of people weren't. So maybe it just goes along with that's the kind of person I am in regards to that stuff,
Absolutely. That makes total sense.
And for me, it's different, maybe because I'm 45 and maybe because I've known so many people who passed away. We're going to talk about this in the next episode, but I know somebody who recently committed suicide within the past, I think it was over the summer or something, past 6 months, and they have a son, so, but I'm just, I don't know. I kind of just, when I hear about him now, stuff like that now, I just, everyone's like, oh, isn't that so depressing? Isn't that so sad? Isn't that so? And yeah, it is, but it's just kind of like, like you said, that's the choices he made. I don't know what he was going through in his life at the time. So I could say, hey, I wouldn't do that, but I don't fucking know. You know what I mean? Exactly. Like, who knows, dude,
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just one of those things that we'll never really know.
Right.
But if I'm questioning it, I guess
Mm.
that's a good start at least, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm sure part of it is repression because I don't always like to talk about my feelings and express how I feel around other people. And I don't know though. I don't know. I guess it'll just be a mystery for us to solve.
Yeah. You mentioning how, her having a baby at this funeral and like, having to wonder like what she's going to do now, all that sort of thing. It's interesting because I was actually thinking about that, something like that on my hike this morning. Because I was, I miscarried several months before Wesley passed away. And we didn't know that we were pregnant or anything. He had been told. So, in a prior episode, and when I talked about Wesley, I had told you guys how he had asked me like, do you want to be with me or not? It's not that he had that attitude. That was me just being silly. He basically felt like he was less than in some regards because he had been told by doctors he couldn't have children because he had so much radiation, so much chemo and everything. And he was basically saying, like, do you accept me the way I am? Because I may never be able to give you children and stuff like that. And my answer to him was like, boy, if God wants us to have kids, we gonna have kids. I'm not worried about that. Like, and if we don't, we don't. I'm not worried, That's, to me, it was just like, whatever happens is, I was kind of like the Kalahari Bushman, like whatever is supposed to happen is going to happen. Like, I'm not worried about that. Right.
Side note, really quick, like, you know how they tell you that all the time in the middle, oh, you probably won't be able to have children. Like, I think they say that to people like way too easy. Cause I know so many people who are not supposed to have kids who had kids. And can you imagine if, I mean, I'm sure it happens all the time. Somebody like Wesley says, I don't know if I can have kids. And then the woman's like, I'm out. It's like, what? And then what if you could have, like, it's so fucking.
It's messed up, right? It's just screwed the heck up.
Yeah.
And they can just frivolously tell you that. It's like,
I don't think kids are made the way that they tell us.
Probably not. That's a very interesting topic. We may have to go into at some point.
Can immaculate conception really happen?
That's a good question and a good topic that we could talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clearly on the Oversharing show.
We can talk about anything on here.
Something else I want to say too. Can you imagine if your last name was Carriage as a woman? Everyone would be like, Miss Carriage, come here, Miss Carriage. Oh man.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
I was thinking about that earlier. I'm like,
it's terrible. I'm just kidding.
It is. I'm going to save it for my terrible podcast. Terrible.com, everybody. TAROTBOLL.com. And thank you again, Ashley, for coming on last week. That was so much fun.
Yes. Lovely time. Absolutely. But I was talking about, what was I talking about?
You were talking about if you're going to have kids, you're going to have them. If God wants to have kids.
Yeah. So it was about, I want to say it was like a February timeframe, 2010. And I had the most severe pain I've ever had in my life. And it was basically several hours of contractions. And Wesley was like, because he was a nurse, and he's like, you're just maybe having a really bad period. And I'm like, no. I know my body.
That's just what men say all the time. Men are just like, my arm's hanging off. No, you're just having a bad period. It's fine.
Having a bad period.
Just put some tape on it. It'll be all right.
You'll be fine.
Take a couple of aspirins. I'm not going to say fucking Tylenol. Okay. Dude, the amazing, I got to say this. I don't care. I'm just going to say the amazing thing to me is like doctors will still tell you to take Tylenol. It's like, just Google what it does to your liver. especially if you drink. Like, I know people who drink that are like, I'm just going to have a Tylenol or an acetaminophen. I'll be fine. I'm like, okay, have fun, man. I'm like, Brandon, why are your eyes wide open? I'm like, oh yeah, have a good time. That sounds like really good. Sorry. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't take Tylenol ever.
I'm sorry, I'm making jokes in the middle of you telling me about your miscarriage with your dead husband. I have great timing. That's the secret of comedy. Timing. Anyway, go ahead.
Terrible. What can I expect from the terrible podcast host?
Yeah, exactly. It's what I do. I make things light.
Yes. But I was in severe pain. That was escalating and then coming back down and escalating and coming back down. And it got closer and closer and closer. It was for pretty much all evening, all night, and into the wee hours of the morning. And I was like, yeah, this is not, I must be miscarriaging because this is not normal. But in his mind, probably he was like, but I can't have kids. You know what I mean? So to him, it was like an impossibility. I'm like, no, this is not normal. This pain is not normal. So I was just thinking on my hike this morning, like that I'm just like, Source knew what Source was doing. I knew what I was doing when I planned out this lifetime, that, that was going to happen, because I would have 11-year-old. Well, Wesley and I always joke that we'd have twins, a girl and a boy, because we just did, Luke and Ariel, we were going to name them.
Ooh.
And we were just like, we're just going to have twins, girl and a boy. We'll be done, boom, done and done. So I would have an 11-year-old, or if we had twins, I'd have 11-year-olds. It's like, and my life would not, that I was just like, I would not be here. I would not be doing what I'm doing. I would not have the lifestyle I had.
You could be dead.
I could not be here.
You could have got hit by a bus. My favorite thing to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. You never know what could happen. I mean, and that's a good way to look at it as far as acceptance. It's kind of like people say the same thing for the abortion argument. Well, I don't want to read, and I don't know. It's like, that's a little different though. I mean, it's because you're making that choice, but when the choice is made for you, then what can you do? Right. Then it's about acceptance, and then if you have to make a choice, then it's about making the choice, according to, I guess, God's law.
And speaking of acceptance, I never had any attachment. I didn't even know I was pregnant. Because I'd had a really bad period the few weeks before that. So I think that's what escalated the whole thing. So it, I don't know what happened, but something clearly didn't work out, and, it was aborted. So the body naturally did it. So, I had no attachment to being pregnant, to having a baby, to be, this baby being, born sometime later. So when I was having this, natural abortion, basically this natural miscarriage, I wasn't grieving a baby being lost. I was just like, oh, this is a natural process. It's happening. I didn't even know I was pregnant, and people are like, oh, that must be so hard. And I'm like, well, the hardest part was the pain. I mean, I didn't know I was pregnant. I didn't know this being was being
maybe the baby's was on the pearly gates waiting for Wesley.
When he died, I was just like, well, there was somebody waiting there for him. That's probably what happened. That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah,
so
that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
Because since it's a mystery, we don't know, right? So
yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we could stick a fork in this episode because we've been going. So I don't know how long.
I think we've been going 2 hours. I'm going to guess.
So, all right. I'll let you know as soon as it downloads. But hey, everybody, thank you for listening to the Over Sharon Show. I hope we brought a lot of light and humor with this topic of death and all these stories. If you have any experiences you want to share below, let us know. Comment. Please tell us. We could talk about it in the next episode, because obviously we're going to be talking about this one again. So we have a lot more to talk about. We have a whole list of notes that we didn't even get to, which is amazing that we were able to go this long on what we thought would only take a few minutes.
Yeah. So if you're still in the live chat, thank you for staying this long. And if you're not, it's okay too.
No, you better stay. How dare you not? I don't care if you die, you got to stay and watch. And then you could come and haunt us. You could turn into a fly when we're trying to podcast.
Yes. Jeez.
All right, everybody. All right, Sharon, what do we say to the good people?
But if you're not oversharing,
then you're totally not caring.
That's right.
So do it. Just do it.